Happy Sunday and welcome back to Retake the Week. It's been another busy week in the world of Counter-Strike, and we've got a few things to talk about. I mean, 3 events, and somehow not a single one at a convenient time for me to watch, but at least I was able to catch the occasional morning game, and then, after work, I could watch some of the Dallas stuff before I had to go to bed. But it's been an interesting one. A lot of stuff to follow, a lot of stuff to catch up on. Before we get into all that, quickly going to remind you, do what I should do every episode, but never remember to. Members get special privileges on this channel. They get access to the monthly Retake the Week Q&A. They also get access to content early, and they actually get an opinion on what videos I make in terms of prospects. So that's going to be real interesting for everyone on the member side going forward. They also get access to behind-the-scenes access. Just special little 10-minute segments that we don't ever release on Retake the Week of just basically us sorting our lives out before we get ready to go live. So, Quacke.
Today you can watch me eat breakfast.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. So, Quacke, of course, it's been a week since we've spoken because we don't actually talk outside of this. How have you been?
Yeah, we keep this relationship strictly professional, occasionally romantic. It's been a good week. There's been a lot of Counter-Strike, like you said. There's fucking. I mean, I'm not going to stay up until 3 a.m. to watch like a Dallas game, and I'm not going to wake up at 6 a.m. to watch a MESA game. So I'd like to watch both of them, but they're kind of mutually exclusive. So it's been hard watching Counter-Strike this week, but
Yeah.
I've tried my best. We still had some very good games. Yeah, it's been a good week. Been a good week. And school's ending. School's out. This was my final semester week. Let's go.
Oh, really?
Exams over. Yeah. Well, no. Okay. I have 2 more semesters before I'm done. But like,
Oh,
it's summer. Officially
okay.
like summer. But yeah. Uh,
Cool. I
so
mean,
that feels good.
that's nice. That's a big W for you. But yeah, no, I actually spent more time this week watching like Tier 2 CS that starts at like 9 a.m. because I'm like, oh, I woke up. I'm in the mood for some CS. There's maybe the end of a MESA game going on. Once that's done, you know, I'll watch Johnny Speeds versus Unity or whatever the hell else is on at 10, 11 in the morning with a solo caster who seems half awake. For some reason, they never get like a bunch of people to do these things. Like, just maybe one game. No. It's one guy working from 9 a.m. his time till about 1 p.m. and he's just sat there like, the marathon goes on, baby. The marathon goes on.
Yeah.
So it's not the greatest casting experience, but at least it's someone's bothering, which is nice. Let's talk about the big stuff. Let's talk about IEM Dallas. We're going to start with the open section. That's the big one everyone's been following. And I think the first thing we have to address is what can only be described as GStew, a phenomena no one really expected. Literally, no one picked them on the double swing. Not myself, not Yumi, not the viewers. Nobody thought GStew had a chance, and yet they've made the grand final. And it's not like it's a Stewie miracle run, like he's fragging. It's everyone else fragging. Stewie, honestly, at times does not look up to snuff, but in terms of the way the team's working, it's just functional, and I do not understand how. I've asked people for explanations. No one's really got anything beyond Stewie's entry pathing, I guess. That might be the key to this success, just activating Nico more consistently. It's really difficult to figure out, though, because it's definitely not a big firepower upgrade in practice. It just seems like a functionality thing.
I think I think what you said is correct. Like he does the entry pathing better. He does what Hooksy is doing. I think he just does that better at the moment. But I mean, so I think I do wonder, like, would we have seen the same thing out of Hooksy if you freed him of the IGL role for an event? Like, is that maybe just it? That like Stewie, of course, Stewie is gonna play. If we assume Stewie and Hooksy are practically equal individually, let's just say that Stewie and Hooksy
Yeah.
in 2024 are practically equal. Of course, Stewie is gonna do better if Nico is the one IGLing while he's playing. Like, it kind of does make sense. So I do wonder if maybe it is slightly. I mean, okay, so people who are saying like, oh, this is Stewie's obviously better, they should cut Hooksy. That's like, nah, well, all right. Maybe that's, but it is functioning, and I wonder. I saw some people say they should cut Hooksy for someone more individually competent and just let Nico IGL full time based off of this event. Uh, I I could see why, because he's doing well on with the leader role right now. But I like he's taking it sort of last minute. He's still working in the same system that Hooksy built. You don't know if like, yeah, sure, it's gonna work now. Is it gonna work like 9 months from now? Is that still gonna work? So, and how does that affect Nico's performance? Is he still gonna be this huge, or like?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of questions around that, but that's some of the discussion I've been seeing at least. I think Nero pointed one thing out, which I don't have in front of me right now, but I think he pointed something out, was that Stewie was getting traded much more than Hooksy was, which is
Mm.
obviously something that helps. Uh, you know, it's something that you don't really measure sometimes, but that's definitely like it definitely helps that if you can put yourself in a situation where your teammates can easily trade you, then that's beneficial to your team. And um, yeah, I
Yeah,
guess Hooksy isn't. So
it's definitely not a like the idea that it could be like, oh, bring someone who's like more competent. It's not a mechanical issue with Hooksy in terms of the comparison with Stewie, because Stewie is averaging 0.49 kills per round at this event. That's lower, in case any of you are wondering, than Hooksy's average on LAN this year. And he's also got a
yeah,
lower rating. Everything statistically is worse, but when we're watching it play out, I think it is just Stewie's playing more competently as an entry. Like, you see him leading the way through smokes, you see him, and the spacing between him and the next guys, clearly ideal. So I think it's just overall a positional problem that Hooksy's had compared to how Stu's performing. And that's great. That's really good for G2. I'm not sure it wins them the final, though, because I do think they've benefited from some off-form opponents in some of these games and playing 9Z in the semi. I don't see them having much of a chance going up against an actually on-form Vitality.
no, I'll take Vitality for this game. There's another thing about what this like stand and stint highlights, is that this really highlights that G2 have bigger issues, which is Nexa and Hunter, because they're doing
Oh,
jack
God.
shit even when Hooksy is gone. Like,
Yeah.
you could like you've changed the team structure, you've changed the IGL. Nexa and Hunter still aren't doing jack shit. Like, Nexa is fucking horrible. Yesterday in the 9C game, when I tuned in the evening there, I opened the stream. The first thing I see is Nexa when he had that 100 HP death in a Molotov, and then the next round he does the exact same thing, like full HP, walks into a Molotov, dies. Like,
Yeah.
there's yeah, it's so like his stats are horrible. I don't know why he's here. It's just, yeah, they need to sort those issues out, either through replacing them or just making them work. But like, it doesn't seem to matter. It's not like it's not like Hooksy's system is making them look worse, because now this is Nico playing. Like, he could have given you more space if you wanted it or needed it. Doesn't work. So
Yeah.
I mean, look, it's kind of funny when Stewie comes in from however long in activity, like a year and a half, something like
Maybe more. Yeah.
inactivity from CS, walks into not just the playoffs, but like this big arena event, stomps face, and like, it's just he's just come in and he's doing better than Nexa. Like, that's, I mean, it doesn't paint a good picture for
Yeah,
Nexa
in sheer
exactly.
rating
So
he is, and in terms of, well, impact on winning, Nexa came in, his stats were crap, and I've got the graphs, I've started charting this. The round win percentage barely budged. They did not get better when Nexa coming in. So I don't think there's a compelling case to keep Nexa at this point, just at all. I think there's still a
yeah, no,
reason to keep Hunter, because at least his highs have been high when he's had them, and he's still like, you feel like he gets better on the big stage. It's not always true. It was kind of true. He had a huge dust 2 against 9Z yesterday, and he was huge against FaZe. So yeah, he's done it again. Stage Hunter
yeah,
is just better than group stage Hunter, which, yeah, you'd hope he could somehow find a way to activate himself on stage. Maybe it's just a relative thing. Everyone else gets worse. He stays the same. But more importantly, I have no reason at this point to keep Nexa on this roster.
no.
And if it means I have to see less, I mean, if it could even work like this long term, bringing in someone like Stewie to play a hard entry role and cutting Nexa and telling Hooksy to, hey, throw util, play passive, call from maybe the back of the pack rather than trying to lead it, because it's just not worked as well. I don't know. I think it'd be a bit silly to start making changes off this one event. But I do think it's a great, I think, advert for Stewie. Not in terms of, oh, he's a great player, but in terms of he can fit on your roster and make things happen. That's definitely an interesting thing to bear in mind, especially when we come across some of the conversations we're going to have later about NA rosters. Because it might not be as hard as we thought for Stewie to find his way back in, given the way the
There's something,
G2 have turned up.
yeah. There's something we can just before moving on from G2. There's something we can
Yeah.
mention here. Stewie, like on T side, Stewie is attempting almost 10% more opening duels, and despite that, he has the highest opening kill rating of the entire team. Like most of the others are mostly unchanged. Like T side opening kill rating is probably usually relatively low, but he's still got a 1.05 with nobody else higher than that, which is like that's sort of where Monisy sits on the normal G2 team. So it's normally. So Nico is actually, I mean, sure, this is just 11, like 13 maps or something, but Nico's taking less opening duels by some margin, by about 5%.
Yeah.
And he seems to be playing it slightly differently, at least. So cool. Anyway.
Yeah, I actually looked into the numbers behind all this. I mean, I'd watched a couple of G2 games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never thought about it. Stewie is, well, he is dying a fuck ton in openings.
Still wins like 0.15 opening KPR. That's quite a bit. That's like the numbers that Yekindor was putting up in his prime. Of course, he was dying less, but like that's pretty good for someone.
Yeah, on
I
that
think
sort
you
of
see
volume,
similar
you don't
numbers for
expect a very good success rate, and his success rate is only 40%. But
yeah,
for T-side attempt rates, that's pretty good.
yeah, like
you don't
if
expect that.
if you're getting 0.15 opening KPR out of this guy, that's like he's putting his weight for sure.
Honestly, actually, that does remind me. When I watch the games, the biggest thing I think is a weakness for Stu right now is his CT play. On CT side, I do find him like moving into positions when he has to like someone drops and he's got to fill in space. He's just not been very intuitive. Like he's in the wrong spot at the wrong time, looking the wrong way. He's rarely good for one. But yeah, maybe the T side hasn't looked as problematic, especially not positionally. So perhaps that's just what comes back to him most naturally. But no, we think we need to move on now. But very interesting, the GStew phenomenon. 9Z. Who would have seen this coming? Literally no one. No one mentioned them in the preamble to this event as a team who would go deep. They took down Mouse in a best of one. At that point, you're thinking, opening best of one. We've seen this before. We'll see it again. You know, the big team gets taken down in a BO1, whatever. They then take down Liquid in 3 maps. Both their wins as close as it can be. 16-13 on Nuke, 13-11 on Dust 2. You think, wow, what a game. What a showcase for Martinez. What a surprise run for these guys. They've made playoffs. Very impressive. Still feels a bit whatever.
Yeah.
They beat
that's where it ends.
Vitality.
Like, and everyone said that's where it ends at the Liquid
They
game
make
because
playoffs.
they're going to make quarters. Yeah, they're going to make quarters and they're going to lose in quarters. That's where the story ends. But
then they do actually win the seeding game. They make it straight to semis. 2-0 against Vitality. Again, it's close, but man, it doesn't matter if it's close or not at this point. They're just winning. So they've made the semi-final straight up. And at that point, yes, the fairy tale does come to an end, but they gave G2 a good game. I don't know how to explain this, really. I think no one expects 9Z to play particularly solid Counter-Strike. Just expect them to play off the fact that they have 3 or 4 guys who are just mega talented and will make something happen. Martinez especially at top of that list. We saw him briefly in that Movistar Riders team. It wasn't too impressive. He was decent, but it wasn't too impressive. He's been way more explosive, way more flashy on 9Z. And to see it really manifest here, and especially get them some big wins, I think has been super impressive. So they're still a team to keep an eye on. I'm still not going to be particularly worried about them coming into most events. I feel like this was their flash in the pan for the year. But it doesn't detract from the talent of these players and the fact that, hey, if you want to make a Spanish-speaking roster work right now, go look in South America. Go pluck some names out of there, and you could probably make a solid enough roster. This team really surprised a lot of people, and I think, yeah, I'm all for it.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, there's a just suddenly there's a big thunderstorm outside. So if I disappear, you know why.
Okay.
Power's gone out in that case. But no, I think it should be fine. But I think when you look at this team list, if I'm just looking at this team list right now, and you ask me like, oh, which teams could upset and go to the playoffs, I probably would have said like M80. I probably would have said M80, Monty, and FlyQuest all had like upset potential and could have made playoffs.
Yep, those guys
Because
were
like
all picked, by the
just
way. Yeah.
yeah, I would have said that those are like the big upset teams. None of them did jack. I think they yeah. M80, yeah, specific M80 and Monty were last place, as were FlyQuest. All three of those were last place. 9Z, I think they I think maybe the reason people didn't really count on them was because they haven't really played too much in they haven't played that many maps in Brazil, or like in South America. Oh, since adding Martinez, I think they show up occasionally and they do very well, but then like they mostly play ECL and like they don't really show up in all of these cups and stuff where other Brazilian teams play. So I think for me I don't really see them that much. Like sometimes I'm wondering like where's 9C in this qualifier, and they just turns out they just didn't want to play it or whatever. Um, but now they're here. They popped off, like you said, best of one win. You kind of whatever. But then they make semis, and honestly, I think if those 4 final rounds on Inferno where G2 won, that was pretty much all Nico. Like if Nico didn't properly show up in those rounds, 9Z would have had a 1-0, and then moving into their own map pick where they had a 100% win rate up until this point in 10 maps. So
Hmm.
it could have been a very different game. I was genuinely seeing the 9Z dream grand final in IM Dallas. So it was because
Yeah.
that's a whole different thing then. If they win Inferno, that's a whole different picture, I think. So I think yeah, um great run from them. They have I mean they have a bit going forward. They have this Fire League thing in Argentina, which is going to be a bit of an invitational LAN, but like now I'm sort of seeing, all right guys, you could win this. Like this is a LAN where probably NIP or Fnatic, maybe Pain should win. But now it's like, all right, 9Z, you can take this. Like you can absolutely take this event. Um, yeah, I think the guy like DGT is someone, or whatever you would say, Digit, whatever. I don't know how you say it.
I
He's
just call
been
him
on 9Z.
DGT as well, so
Yeah, yeah. DGT and Max, they've been on 9Z for so long. Like they are
hmm.
the mainstay since like 2019, 2020. Um, they've played really well. Like for that entire time, I think they played a very good game, and they just keep showing up. And then I think they went through 9Cs. Feel like historically they've gone through a lot of unfortunate roster changes, like where, let's see, try quit for personal reasons, right? And that's why they got Martinez as the op.
I believe so.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's a huge loss. I think that's when a lot of people started like discounting 9C entirely. And then like there's other changes here. This when they lost Try in the first place, that was another thing where like he was just bought out and they had to make changes around that. And like there's a lot of unfortunate timing for 9Z, I think, where they've showed good promise in the past, but then things just don't really work out for reasons sort of out of their control. So it's nice
Yeah,
for them
like
to get this.
Davideusz getting was he bought out? I believe. Like they briefly benched him, and he was
I think
immediately
he was bought
transferred
out. Yeah,
away. Like Davideusz was so promising, and then you don't really know how they're going to survive, and they go and sign Wasso Peak. They go sign Martinez. They get so much out of these guys.
yeah.
I think they deserve a lot of credit for that as well. Just their
I think
recruitment and their ability to develop has been amazing.
Quacke Peak was he was a 9Z Academy player when he got signed. He was just on loan to Flamenco for like 3 months before they called him back to the main team. So like
There you go.
you've lost Davideus, who was like touted as one of these like big guys for you, but he goes and signed for Red Kenneds.
Mm.
You have to pick up an academy player, and that's a risk. That's always going to be a risk. But you do that, and then you get these results. And I mean, I'm going to mention him later because yeah, it's a very good run for 9C.
Yeah, love to see it. This is the kind of thing you want the local hero, just playing some solid CS and making things happen. Right. So
Mm.
next up, This is a bit of a general point, but it's a point I think that matters that we need to address because there'll be a bunch of teams that come under this. Of the big favorites coming into this event, only 2 of them even made top 4. They faced each other, and now only 1 of them has made the grand final. I think we have to address basically all the other big favorites that didn't make it. So firstly, the 2 that actually did do their part, until the semis at least, where one of them had to go home, was Spirit and Vitality. Everyone else, so we're talking FaZe and Mouse Sports, massively disappointed us. I think FaZe, at least making it to the quarters, can't take too much crap, but I think we'll start with the bigger of the 2 letdowns, and that's Mouse. So they did, of course, we touched on it briefly, they lost that best of 1. Okay, it's a close enough best of 1 to a team of talented little underdogs scrapping, whatever, cool. They then beat Complexity, who go straight home, and we'll probably have words about that in a bit. Then they lose to G2, and it's not a landslide loss, but you just don't expect it from these guys at this point. You know, they won Bet Boom, they won Pro League. The events they didn't win before, they lost in close fashion in grand finals, or they lost on the big stage and kind of crumbled a bit. It wasn't a group stage exit. So it does feel very different to what we're used to. Despite the numbers, just like on paper, they look like they had a regular event. Like Brolan played amazing. Sershin had a lot of impact. They got a solid level out of Torji. It doesn't feel like a crazy underperformance from them as a roster. I just feel like they got the wrong matchups at the wrong time. So I think this is a big, like, wow moment that Mouse Sports go out in groups. But I don't think it's going to tarnish, like, the rest of their year. I don't think it's going to be a big warning sign that things are about to go downhill, if you know what I mean.
I think this is interesting. A lot of people, me included, kind of wrote them off for the Bet Boom event because it was literally like they won EPL and like they got on a plane, they had media day, they play their first game. It was like that. So I thought there's no fucking way they're gonna win Dacha. And then they actually go and win Dacha. They beat Spirit to win the Bet Boom thing in Belgrade. So they
Yeah.
win back-to-back events. And then they immediately go to Dallas. I think they had a couple of days break. And you know, it makes sense that you feel like, all right, we're gonna hit burnout soon, so I think we need to take a break. But then that's actually what Torji sort of spoke about as one of the reasons why they lost out in Dallas was because they took this big break. And like I wonder if maybe I think what basically what he was saying is it would have been better for them to stay on the grind and keep the momentum up. And by taking that break, they sort of lose their momentum. So I think it could have looked different. I think yeah, it's obviously you would have expected more out of Mouse at this event, but I mean, yeah, it's decisions they make. They made the decision to take the break, which is logical, but in hindsight, maybe they think, you know, we could have just carried the momentum and won. Um, I think it comes down to that decision in the end. Then for FaZe, I think Kerrigan spoke about similar things. Like like what I got from that Kerrigan interview, which came out yesterday or 2 days ago or something after the
Yeah.
loss, um, was that this is sort of the buildup of like long running issues that have been slowly building up and they've failed to address because they haven't really sat down and looked at like what are our real issues with the team. And that's sort of came to an end now, like in Dallas, where like all of that built up into like a run ending game where like all of those mistakes just keep building up and like all of those issues with that you failed to address in the past just sort of add up. So it's obviously a disappointment for both teams. There's no hiding from that. But I think both of them, it doesn't really like you say, it doesn't really tarnish their year. More so for Mouse perhaps than for FaZe. But I think both teams have like it's not the sign of a large downfall just yet. I don't think. I think both of them have a very solid ground and they can like they should have the tools available to them to recuperate this. I don't know what the next are they in the Yala Compass thing?
So what I was
No.
actually about to bring up quickly is that this actually seems like a bit of a scheduling fuck up for Mouse. because
Mm.
they are not playing Blast Premier Spring Final. They should
Yeah,
have tried to keep the momentum running, burn out properly, I guess, like, and
Mm.
actually play this event full ass, full tilt,
Mm.
and then you have like a month off before your next actual event. They don't play
Yeah, they
another
have
real
fuck
event
all.
till July, so they
Yeah,
could have
they
taken
have fuck
June
all
off
until
pretty
then. Yeah.
much. So
Yeah.
yeah, that does feel like a bit of a slip up for Mouse if they
Yeah.
truly did take their foot off the gas entirely. I think it was one event too soon, and I get it. It's a really grueling schedule. I think that's part of the reason we gave FaZe so much slack for, not going deeper than top 8 at Pro League. It's because they have been playing event after event, and I think for them Dallas is less important than the last spring final, because I think winning the spring final gets you to the world final or whatever it's called. Love these nonsensical names. So you just end up, I think it ends up mattering more for them in the long run, despite Dallas being an IEM event. And IEM events obviously counting towards the Grand Slam and all that other good stuff. I think for them, just the blast probably is more important. So for them, it's not too important they took this one off. But no, I think there's definitely issues FaZe need to address. They got completely outclassed by an undermanned G2 roster with arguably two subpar players in terms of at least mechanically subpar players. That's just not something you want to see. Like, sure, you got
Yeah.
absolutely dogged by Munacy, but you shouldn't be getting dogged by one man. Like, that shouldn't be happening to you. So big disappointment for FaZe. But yeah, if they can get themselves sorted and lock back in for Blast, they'll still be one of the most dangerous teams and probably one of the favorites. It's just a question of if they can do that. And for us on the outside, can we predict that they'll be able to do that? So I'm not sure I'll be too comfortable picking them, given what we've just heard. I think they're going to need a bit of a longer break to address these sorts of issues. But I think that's definitely a bigger priority for them.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think, I mean, if there's anyone who could use the break and benefit from it, they're gonna have a month off. Probably there's gonna be a vacation in there as well because it's a player break. But they have a little over a week until spring final now.
Yeah.
I think it's
It's
manageable that
12th.
they,
So yeah.
yeah, I think it's manageable that they could sort of hit the ground running and get back into this. Um, have some time off, do some really effective fixing the most immediate issues, and then come in here because they have I wouldn't say an easy group, but they have Saw in the first game, and then they have either Navi or Astralis. Astralis they have lost to in the past,
Yeah, group stage
and
Astralis is a dangerous thing, but yeah.
yeah, but even then, just beating Saw is enough to make playoffs. So they should be in playoffs, I think. If I, yeah, there's no way, there's genuinely no way they don't make playoffs here. So yeah, I think, and from there it's just keep it going. So I think they could have a good showing in spring final, but I think you might be right. Yeah, they might if they had skipped spring final, then I would have definitely said they're going to come in strong for the fall season. Now I think it's going to be a bit tight.
Yeah.
But let's see. Maybe they just don't bother with the spring final whatsoever. I don't think that's FaZe's style, but maybe they just go like, we're gonna attend because we promised to, but we're gonna do no prep. We're just gonna work fully for the fall season. Like maybe that's not really their style, but yeah.
Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah.
But all right, let's close out this topic, this event recap with our NA teams. This was their event. It's their yearly event, the one we give to them. We pretend CS isn't just European. And neither one of them made it out of groups. Now they're both in the same group, the big North American teams.
Yeah.
Complexity and Liquid, in case anyone missed the fucking boat on that one. They faced each other in the opening game, where Liquid completely outclassed Complexity on Dust 2. And then Complexity went on to lose to Mouse. Wasn't too much of a landslide, but it's still a disappointing loss for them. Just to go straight home more than anything. Sure, they expect to lose to Mouse, but if you think Mouse ended up going home in this event in groups as well, so this might have been a great opportunity to actually get that win. But instead, they go out in last place. In Complexity, I have many opinions on players and people who should be cut from this roster. It's just always the question of, as I so eloquently roasted the North Americans in my last video, once you do cut a player from a top NA team, who do you sign? especially if you're making like 2 changes and you're trying to keep it North American. You got to be careful who you cut and who you're signing. So I think we'll get into the actual idea of making roster moves later, but for now, huge disappointment for complexity. Liquid did at least make it a little further. They lost to 9Z, as we said, beat Falcons, which was, I mean, Falcons are not exactly on a heater, but it's a real win. And then lost a close-ish game to G2, which they shouldn't be ashamed of. I mean, at least we're still seeing the same good things out of Twists. He's still definitely one of the best riflers of the year. And it's not been too terrible from Yukindar and Cady in this event. But they still have the problem of Skulls being an issue on T side and nowhere near impactful enough on CT side to make up for it. Yeah, it's a rough looking outlook for both teams, but at least Liquid are capable of winning a game here and there.
Yeah, this is also a piece of analysis I'm gonna steal from Nero.
Okay.
Liquid, they haven't really Liquid haven't really applied the system in the same way. Like it's sort of visible in the data. Like he's got very different kinds of players now than he had in Heroic. So it seems like they're really maybe like I think the narrative right now is that we blame the Liquid players for not buying into Cadian's system. I think they just have the wrong players to buy into Cadian's system. I think there needs to be a different system if this is anything to go off of. But regardless, complexity are like the big losers if we're picking anyone here. This is their event. I know they don't. I don't think they officially have the Dallas Cowboys connection anymore.
No, that's cut. That's no longer a thing.
But do they? I think they still have their headquarters in Dallas and stuff. Or was that still also Dallas Cowboys?
Oh, I don't know
owning
that for sure, but I know they are no longer tied to the Dallas Cowboys branding, as it were.
Yeah, they still have a connection to Dallas, and I think I wouldn't be surprised if like they have a lot of fans in Dallas, and like if there's I think they still have a connection to the city. They're literally here for an IEM, and they go out in last place. That's huge, and I think I think we've talked about this before. You could realistically justify cutting pretty much everyone except Alicia. So, and then I have no idea because then what they said, like what we were hearing about roster moves was, well, what was the ahead of EPL, Halzark was like, this event is super important, otherwise I don't get a contract extension. Like if I play poorly here, I'm pretty much out. That's what we heard, and then he played pretty well. And then they're sort of in this limbo. Should they cut him? Should they keep him? I don't know. And then now what what they said then is that if Dallas actually doesn't matter, we're not going to decide Halzek's future based on how they do in Dallas. Where that's all like that decision has already been made, or it's going to be made, whatever. Floppy is fucking nowhere. Like it's such a weird ass team, and I don't really see. It's a shame they lose here. Because I think the hometown heroes. I think no matter what you think about them, I think people are always sort of slightly rooting for the hometown hero. Like even if you aren't a fan of complexity in general, like you want them to have a good event in Dallas. I think so. Shame for them. Yeah. Still, good of them to get a map against Mouse, I guess. That's
cool.
I guess.
Right, clap, clap. Anyway.
Yeah.
It's an NAW, let's put it that way. But no, let's wrap that up and let's move on to the other part of Dallas. Because there are 2 Dallas events running simultaneously right now. And the other one is, of course, the IM Dallas Impact Finals. So a bit of the old school DreamHack format being used here, with the BO1 opener in groups, the BO1 winners match in groups, then a very smashed together playoff schedule all in one day. Who knows why, but that's what we're doing. We can spare 123,000 for a prize pool, but we can't spare 10 minutes of logic and a bit of a promo. So here we are, Impact Finals. It was a bit of a weird one. I'm going to be honest. There was one team who did what I expected them to do, like exactly what I expected them to do, and that was Imperial FE, formerly Pigeons. Previously, before that, you will have known them as Nigma Galaxy. the number
And
one
after
women's
you might have
team.
known them as Imperial Valkyries, but they changed that back because Heroic launched a Valorant team called Valkyries. So they went back on that.
That's a cool detail I didn't even know. But more importantly,
Yep.
they took care of business. They won their 2 opening BO1s. That's it. Not even a struggle in either game. 23, I think, topping the stat sheets. She put up a 1.73 rating across their 2 maps. You know, the breezy part. Everything else pretty much was a surprise. I'd be saying, oh, but Kingt, didn't you really predict FlyQuest Red would go out in last place because North American? Yes, but they looked better in their losing best of 3 than they usually do. And that's a big improvement, because last time they went out in last place and it was awful. This time it was actually a bit of a showing. Sure, they ended up getting knocked out because Olga is a beast, and let's be real, that HSGFE was supposed to be a super team this entire time. So the fact that they have made playoffs again, made it back through the best of 3s, shouldn't be too shocking. If FlyQuest Red is still missing a step, it feels like, in these women's events, but that step is getting shorter. So I think that's a positive sign. Bigger keeper. I expected them to actually beat HSGFE. I thought they played so well in the women's season in Europe, in the regular season. I thought they'd do better here. They didn't. Again, HSGFE are a super team. Olga is a beast. Should be getting used to this by now. But because they play on the Asian side, not a lot of us get to see them most of the year. I do kind of wish they'd, I don't know, expand the format in Europe and just bring the Asian teams to Europe. But like the 2 weeks you have to play, I don't think it'd be that big of an expense. Hey, maybe if you're going to throw all that money again into prize pools, millions of dollars across these years in prize pools, maybe make the events good. Let us see HSGFE more than twice a year. That'd be lovely. But no, that's Group A. And before I start just dominating this entire conversation, I'm sure you have opinions on this group. It didn't go as expected. What are your takes?
Yeah, I didn't go as expected. I think HST put up a good game. I did just realize we had this very same elimination series last Impact season, because I was like,
Yes.
I swear I've seen this before. And someone else also criticized FlyQuest Red in that series. So yeah, better
Yeah, but in
showing
that
this time.
series
I
it
think
was 13-6, 13-2, and FlyQuest Red looked abysmal. It
what
was
are you just hitting
awful.
on them? They've
Yeah.
dominated NA play all season.
Yeah, the iconic
uh,
freestyle lines, the absolute
yeah,
slam,
I just made
the
that up
diss
off the top of
track.
my head. So
I was expecting you
uh,
to say they should be celebrated, but you didn't for
yeah,
whatever reason. I don't know. Oh,
yeah, no. I think they played a very good game. I think they played 2 very good games. That's an overtime game against Big Equipa as well, which is
oh
Big
yeah.
Equipa are a good team.
I
And
thought
then
they were going to
HSD,
win
I
that game.
find,
I was winning it. I was watching it for like 20 rounds. Then I had to go do something, and I thought, damn, they looked surprisingly good. I think they might win this game. I come back. They lost an
yeah,
OT, of course, but no, really well played.
they had a 7-2 lead, also 7-5 in halftime. Then they had 12-8, and then
Yeah,
they lost it. They
that's
lost
when I
4 in
stopped
a row.
watching.
Yeah. um, yeah, it's it's kind of sad for them. I like FlyQuest Red.
Hmm.
But we have
Yeah, round
Imperial, no
differential. Sorry,
surprises.
just throw it in there. Their round differential, despite not winning a game, was -1.
Yeah,
Like, they did their damnedest.
yeah. Uh, to compare, Fluxo Demons actually made playoffs with a round differential of -1.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's funny how Counter-Strike works sometimes. But yeah,
Brutal.
it's yeah. I think FlyQuest still played a good game. I think they can maybe not be happy with this. I think HSG. I remember when we first saw HSG in like the first Impact season, where they were, as always, the token Asian event to attend the Impact League thing, and they were kind of the last laughing stock. I feel like, because they had never won anything, they were never doing anything. They actually made playoffs that time, also against CLG Red at the time. So, what is this? Just
Yeah.
some sort of like recurring match. Now they have Olga. Olga is just it's the Olga show. I think they're playing a good game. Then Big Equipa, I feel like Big Equipa I would have taken Big Equipa to beat HSG in that final game.
Yeah, me too. Based on what
For
I'd actually
sure.
watched this season, yeah.
Yeah, and I think they got pretty close. That Anubis game, they definitely could have won that Anubis game, but they lost in overtime. So, I mean, the ancient blowout. That's not very good, not a good look. But like yeah, it could have been closer than it was. I think so. Sad. We only have one Swede in the playoffs. I think the bigger surprise is in the other group. I
It
think.
is, and we'll get to that in a second. As in, we'll get to it pretty much now. But yeah, Group A had its fair share of surprises. Group B, okay, to be fair, there was one expected result in Group B as well. TSM Shimmer, straight home. If you're the second best NA team at the event, yeah, bloody hell, we're not expecting much more. And it wasn't pretty. But yeah, TSM Shimmer go down. What we didn't expect was firstly in the opening BO1s, Let Her Cook. They upset Na'Vi Javelins. You're thinking, okay, we're having this conversation again. Opening BO1s, things happen. Na'Vi Javelins go down to their lower game and have to face TSM Shimmer. They win. They then play Fluxo Demons for the playoffs. What a game. What a series. Every map as tight as a map can be. 16-13, 16-14, 13-11. Fluxo Demons. Technically, like, they are the amalgamation of Brazilian talent. Like, they are the Brazilian super team as it can be constructed without Olga. But my god, what a series.
Oh my god. I didn't watch, but that Inferno map, that was a comeback from 3-11 to 13-11 for Fluxo. Holy shit.
What a game.
What the fuck? Yeah.
What a crazy game. And Na'Vi Javelins, for me, were my pick of the teams to actually upset Imperial at this event. They have been for a while. They managed to do it in the Trade It FE Masters season, whatever the hell it was, that recent event they played online in Europe.
Yeah.
It just, wow, did not happen at this event. I mean, Hanka is like, if there was a women's episode of Prospects, it'd be about Hanka. She kind of delivered, but not enough to get Na'Vi past this Fluxo Demons team who were just on a tear. Youngher deserves a lot of credit.
You also probably would have taken that that Imperial Na'Vi game to have happened in the grand final.
Of course.
Which it won't. So that's pretty big, I think. I mean, yeah, it is big. It's huge. I think Fluxo Demons are dangerous. We've seen them be dangerous in the past as well. I think Let Her Cook winning the group, I can sort of chalk that up to best of one upsets, like 2 best of 1 upsets. They might be dangerous, but like I haven't really thought of them as a very good team. I know they've had a lot of roster trouble. This is still just a mix, kind of like this is still just a mixed team that was kind of haphazardly put together in the middle of the like European season. So
yeah,
they're doing fine. They don't have the best players. Like they have Astra, who I think got cut from NIP for Ramsin as the offer. So like they probably if they got picked up, they probably would have changed a few players, I think. So like yeah, this is probably not their ideal lineup, but good on them. Na'Vi Javelin's missing out. Fluxo are really dangerous because we've seen them. They played an Impact final in the past, or maybe even 2. They've pretty much made playoffs quite a lot of times, I think. They absolutely dominated the South American season. Only lost 2 maps out of 7 games. Yeah, they made playoffs in the past. They actually in the last season they lost to Na'Vi Javelins in the semifinal. But there they also beat Enigma Galaxy in a best of 1. So
yeah, I think the game of the event will be that semi-final, Imperial FE versus Fluxo Demons. It might be the grand final or the semi-final. I mean, to be fair, if we end up either team, probably Imperial, in the final against HSG FE with the role they've been on, also bang a game potentially. I mean, Let Her Cook, I don't want to write them off the bat because they have won their games. But like, yeah, sure, you know who they are, like individually, all the players, if you followed the European season enough. But Astra, I mean, she's not the player she was back on Godsent FE. You know, the scene has kind of, I think, overtaken her a bit. I think at the time she was better relative to the scene than she is now. And the top end talent for them really at this event has been Melly and Rachel. I'm rooting for them. Like, hopefully they can get things done against HSGFE. But at the same time, I think it's just it's a bit of a monstrous matchup for them. In a BO3, I wouldn't bet on it happening. So I'm looking at an Imperial FE versus HSG FE final. That could be massive. Absolutely massive.
Yeah. This exact constellation of players they're using here has only played 8 maps together. So 6 maps prior to this
Yeah.
final. HLTV maps, but still. This is the
Obviously,
remnants of the Game Religion team that got signed and then very quickly got dropped. And I think that was in conjunction with cheating accusations against Manishin.
Okay.
No, it was. I almost don't want to bring it up because it's such a weird story. But I could bring it up if you want. It has it has some transphobia in it. But yeah, so there's it's weird, but there's I wouldn't take them to do that well at this event, but then they have made playoffs. I don't think I think we're gonna see HSG in the final, and then that could be a pretty big game, no matter who they face.
Yep.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, excited. Maybe we'll get some Brazilian viewership because there's no Brazilians left really in the men's side. Time for the, what was it, like that one event? There's one Impact League Finals. It was like 60, 70K viewership just because of the Gaulish stream. The most ridiculous inflated stat. But hey,
the power that guy has, the power.
yeah, it counted for
Yeah.
someone at Impact. It didn't count for anyone else. But
Yeah,
they thought it was
he
great.
rules Counter-Strike Twitch. Yeah.
But all right, that's the final thing. Like the EU dominance maybe slipping a little bit in the women's scene. Just with Na'Vi falling down, you kind of feel like it, but I feel like it's more of a one-off than anything else. I'm still betting on those top European teams doing all the damage. And that kind of wraps up the women's event. All the playoffs today, for whatever godforsaken reason. And let's move on to the MESA
final.
event. This has been really fun to follow. I'm going to be honest. I've had a lot of fun following it. And I don't know if enough people have watched it because it has been at awkward times. But it has been the Mongols masterclass the whole way through. They haven't dropped a map. They played Gaiman Gladiators and made them look shit. They then went out in last place, so maybe they are shit. Maybe I was right. I'm a genius. And then they beat Aurora 2-0. Not complete dominance, but fairly comfortable. They then beat Bleed 2-0 in really comfortable fashion. They look untouchable. And now today they have the grand final against Bleed. The consolidation final happened this morning. So actually, no, the final started, hasn't it? 11 a.m.?
It has just started. Bleed are 5-0 up on their pick. And we have 5 maps.
Yeah, so big BO5 final.
Despite the double elimination bracket, Mongols didn't get the first map advantage that you normally see in these double elimination playoffs.
Did they get any advantage?
No,
was it just
I think
BO5?
I guess they got the advantage of picking whether they want first pick or like last pick.
Okay, weird.
Because Bleed got first pick, so I don't know.
I know. Yeah, I've liked the idea recently in my head of if you have a lower bracket sort of disadvantage, it should be the upper bracket team gets to veto both maps. Like in terms of a best of 5, they get to do both vetoes. I think that would be a really cool way to do it. But yeah, I mean, not everyone agrees that the lower bracket team should have a disadvantage. I'm personally not opposed to the idea of having it be a fair fight, despite the upper bracket team not being rewarded, or how the line of reasoning usually goes. I'm okay with it overall. But no, it's been a cool event. The event's been like really packed out. Apparently, the Mongolian broadcast, like the host on stage, is a comedian. So he's been really engaging for the fans. Like he's a famous Mongolian comedian. It's been a great event, I think, for the crowd in-house. And the broadcast has been a bit sketch sometimes, in terms of the quality and like going down, the audio being all messed up. To give them credit, like it's not every day you run an event out of, what's it called, the Step Arena or whatever. Like it's a first for a lot of things. But no, pretty cool event so far. I'm really looking forward to this grand final. Shame I don't really get to watch it, because as soon as this wraps up, I'm running across London to get to an event. So that's the big one, Mongols Masterclass. Bleed making the final. I think we're seeing them slowly separate themselves, like join the pack that Mongols are kind of establishing, like around like the lower end of the top 20, starting to play really good Counter-Strike, having legit stars, being a threat consistently. I think that's where they're kind of targeting, and they showed here, like most of their games, they didn't seem too worried. Like Chinggis Warriors had no team map, whatever. They dropped a map to Atox, but they were comfortable in the other ones. I think Bleed, they're not quite reached Mongols level, but that's the kind of space they're aiming for right now. And I'm pretty excited for Bleed's future. The roster moves have been huge in terms of names, and we're starting to see it like embed themselves and produce some results. So I'm pretty excited for Bleed.
I think didn't you and I say this would be the grand final? Like, or at least I said. I think I saw Mongols and Bleed meeting in the final.
Oh yeah, that felt
and like
pretty written.
yeah, but I mean but you wouldn't think so. It's number 15 and number 46. So like it's the way I saw it, one of these two teams was winning the event, and yeah, that is the case. One of these two teams is winning the event. So, but I mean, look, if I go to host a LAN, like a smaller but still decently big prize pool LAN in an exotic location, I would probably pick Mongolia, and I would pick this selection of teams. Like this is a great event, I think. So I think we've seen very good stuff out of Mongols and Bleed, of course. I think Bleed played only Mongolian teams up until the upper final, which probably put a caveat on like their performance. And even then they dropped a map against Atox. If you would probably say that they should have won that 2-0.
Probably.
But Atox are half decent. They still beat OG as well. So like they're no slouches, but like on paper, if Bleed are playing a non-Mongols Mongolian team, then they probably should have won 2-0. But they still made it here, so they probably put a caveat on it. They go and beat Aurora in the consolidation final. Result has once again been very good for Aurora. I think that hire has been a very good. They made a very good signing there. And then they're back in the final, and they're actually leading at the moment. This is obviously the sort of repeat game. But yeah, it's a good event. I think Gaming Gladiators sort of disappoint here. I do wonder if this is just the end of like that form they had for Copenhagen. If this is just the end for that. I think it's cool we got to see Atox and Chinggis Warriors. There's some players here that are definitely worth keeping an eye on. I think Annihilation being back as well is pretty cool. Yeah. Sorry, it's the fucking pollen. I hate this. But yeah, I love this event. And I'm gonna be watching this grand final all afternoon. But yeah,
that's fair enough. But no, I didn't really have much faith in Gaming Gladiators to be like one of the real teams. I said it whilst they were playing under the Ecstatic banner in Copenhagen, and I'll say it again. I don't rate the team. Like, to be completely honest, the person I have the most faith in and the most interest in is Patty long term as an IGL. And as a fragger relative to his spot, I think he's the most productive player on that roster. So the fact that they were massively disappointing here just shows that everyone else's standards are wrong. Like, they're not that good. And that's the long and the short of it. So, yeah, that final's going to be great. Shame I can't really watch it. And, bloody hell, we're running long, so I'm going to rush past any other minor points. Quickly, the changes to the major qualifier. This is a topic...
we forgot to put this in the show notes.
We did initially, and this is a topic that probably requires way more time than we're going to be able to give it. But yeah, they've changed the way the major works. So now you have to play a bunch of tiny shitty events really to get your Valve ranking up if you're like one of the lower rated teams in the world. Because if you're still one of the top 16 sort of European teams who plays the occasional big event, you're probably not going to have too many worries about where you fit in this ranking. But yeah, the lower level teams, they no longer have the open qualifier chaos to rely on, which seems so silly to say, considering that was always a big clusterfuck. I'm personally not too bothered. Now, there has been some outrage from certain Swedish individuals about timing and other such things. Considering it's the same shit for everyone, I'm not too bothered. But I'm going to let certain Swedish individuals have their say because it seems more
I think
important.
I think I'm not against the change like in abstract. I'm not against the change. I think it's fine to get rid of the open qualifiers if you can ensure good teams still make it through. Now the thing is, Valve's ranking sucks ass, and having open qualifiers as a way for teams that were too low ranked or unranked to like prove their worth and make it through because they probably deserve to be there was a way to circumvent that. So, for example, for Copenhagen, we had Fnatic and Heroic making it through. Both of them, Fnatic, you could reasonably say was a top 30 team in the world because they made it among the, they made it to the last chance qualifier. So I think you could have definitely said they were definitely top 30, top 35, because that was the 24 major teams plus the other six. So I think you could certifiably say that they were one of the teams that probably should have been at the major, or at least they definitely deserve to be in the RMR. With today's system, they would have lost out entirely because they were unranked at the time with their new core. Heroic, same thing, unranked with their new core because Valve decided that the last ranking update before they handed out close qualifier invites was very early. But Heroic also would have missed out. They actually ended up making top 14 in the world, so they definitely deserve to be at the major. In today's format, they would have missed out entirely. Um, I think, but I think that's fine as long as you have a ranking that can actually accurately reflect it and you time everything correctly so that teams that make changes have the chance to do that. Let's say they introduced this system 2 months earlier, and we have the same thing. Let's say we have Fnatic and Heroic with two completely new cores. Uh, if you make the change, the timing of it all is probably my biggest problem because if they have 2 more months to work on this, basically up until 3 days ago or 2 days ago, everybody thought that the game you had to play to make major qualification was build a solid team, and if you aren't high ranked enough at the time, you just play the open qualifier and you do well and you make it through all of that chaos. And if you're a good enough team, you can probably do that. Like in Copenhagen, we didn't really have any huge upsets. Like the teams we expected to go through, like the big ones, definitely did go through. Um,
Yeah, the real
so
question is how many of them would have just been invited anyway, uh, in terms of the top
I
48
actually,
European teams.
like I said, Fnatic and Heroic would have missed out for sure. I haven't gone and looked back entirely, but I'm pretty sure Ecstatic, who actually ended up making the major and made even the top 16, they would have missed out. Um, yeah, like there's a couple who definitely would have missed out, and I think
Ecstatic tweeted that they would. I've also seen people just point out that they would have been invited.
I haven't actually checked. So full disclosure,
Yeah, like
they actually wouldn't
Backcrack Brain
have.
just pointed out, actually in the rankings, you would have been invited anyway, so stop
All right,
crying.
uh,
That's
Fnatic,
essentially his tweet.
Heroic, yeah, it's just a bunch of teams that definitely would have missed out. Some teams that definitely will miss out on this major, for sure. Cloud9 is probably the big one.
Yeah, they
No
don't have
matter
a
what
team,
core they put
so
together.
yeah.
Yeah, but no matter if they put a core together tomorrow, they have no way. Like they have no events before this. I think they maybe have one event. That's not going to be enough. Like they are not going to make that ranking at that point. There's absolutely no way
It's fine.
unless they sign like an existing core, unless they sign the Bet Boom core or whatever.
Or even the
Then they're
Paravision
fine.
core.
Even the Paravision core, if they sign the Paravision core, that would probably be the funniest way to make it into there. But
They just
it's
make the close qualifier at that point for the RMR.
yeah.
Like,
And then
it doesn't
I just
seem
think
doesn't
it's
seem
silly.
that difficult, to be honest.
I just think it's really silly with the timing because everybody thought they were playing one game. Like, all right, even if we like either we are consistently good to the point where we can get an invite, like a close qualifier invite, or because you still had those in the past, like you still had close qualifier invites, or if we can't really manage that, we just have to be good enough on the day, on the open qualifiers to make it through. That was sort of the game. Bleed, I guess, were the ones who missed out the last time, but their team was so fucked at that point. So like they had to really haphazardly put together a shit roster at that point. So um
Yeah, Bleed was a terrible example at that
yeah.
point. It
But
was a
what I'm
mess.
basically saying is that of course Valve have I think first of all, there was no reason why this change couldn't have been communicated earlier. They just packaged it together with the actual tournament dates, which I guess like to a toddler that makes sense. But then you think about it and it's like, why did these things have to be? Because they've been thinking about this for so long. This change is almost entirely motivated by they don't want the open qualifier cheaters to knock out actual good events, like actual good teams. That looks really bad for your game. Of course you don't want that. So they get rid of the open qualifiers. Easiest solution. Because before people start crying about just make a good anti-cheat, they have good anti-cheat. It's just so many fucking games. Like you can circumvent any anti-cheat, face it anti-cheat, Across, whatever. Across, on a technical level, what I've been told is Across, which they used in the challenger mode qualifiers, Across is actually better than face it anti-cheat on a technical level. And that's still circumvented by modern cheats, which are so easy to find. It's this cat and mouse game. The cheaters are always ahead of the anti-cheat guys. So it's not even about just make a good anti-cheat. No, it's not even about that. Doesn't matter. What the issue is, it's just so many fucking games. And like, even if they hosted the last major qualifiers and face it, well, we would still have cheaters in the round of 32. Because they just make it through there before you can even have the time to deal with them. So, remove open qualifiers. I'm kind of fine with that. Now, the two issues are, you could have communicated this so much earlier, because now everybody thought they were playing one game for major qualification, which was we can always do it in the open qualifier. In reality, this whole season they've been playing a different game, which is the only objective is to be consistently good. That's the only way to make the major. And I think that changes the way like some teams would look at their roster moves and what events they pick. And like I think even if it impacted absolutely nothing, even if in the end all teams go through, I think it's just not fair. Like they thought they were playing one game, and in reality, Valve were all like the whole time Valve were planning to make a big change that actually changes how you actually qualify for the major. I think this could have been communicated like the day after Copenhagen, because for sure they decided to do it by then. The open qualifiers were in mid-January. Like, there's no way that why this Valve definitely decided this before April. Like, I can tell you that much. So it's not a cost-cutting issue. The TOs pay for the open qualifiers regardless. Like, Valve don't even pay for the open qualifiers. So I don't fucking know. It's but that's my biggest issue. The other issue I have is that this system works fine if you have an actual representative ranking, and Valve ranking just isn't that. Like, I think yes, in general, most of the teams that definitely should have a chance of making the major, they're here. But then there's the sort of in the middle teams where I feel like, as much as I love them, I don't think Johnny Speeds have played notable enough events to deserve a chance at making the major over Endpoint. And that's like, sure, Endpoint might not be at their best right now, but Johnny Speeds they're just a mixed team. Like they've been rotating players. It's not real. And I just feel like it's not about who is gonna make the major. It's about who gets a chance at making the major, because that's what the qualifier is. Endpoint, I think they might be on that last spot if, like, depending on how the ranking shakes out, they might be on that. And I mean, look, we talked about this. Valve ranking has to be changed. I think we can all agree Valve ranking is not a very good representative ranking. I think the biggest example is when Imperial FE inevitably win ESL Impact, because the ranking is based on prize money, they go from their 58th ranking, which is about 7 spots away from a major qualification right now.
Yeah, in practice
When
it
they
is, yeah.
when they get the big prize money from ESL Impact, that's a huge win for them, and they are gonna slide up. I honestly think, like, relative to who is above them, there's nobody above them who is gonna earn more prize money in that point. Like in between them and qualification, there's nobody who's gonna earn more than those $50,000 in that Impact League event. Like, this Impact League final is weighted more heavily than this MESA LAN. Like, is that fair? No. Like, it just isn't. So if when they inevitably get that prize money from winning, they're gonna slide up. They are gonna slide up into the qualification spaces, and they are gonna get a close qualifier invite. And as much as I love Imperial female, like they aren't there competitively. They just aren't. Like they are gonna go last, and at that point you start to wonder, well, who came second place to them? And at that point, it's probably gonna be someone like, well, maybe Endpoint. At that point, do Imperial FE deserve a fractional chance at making the major over Endpoint, who actually have shown a half decent level, like as an organization, as a team? We talk like Mighty Max, Surreal, the players who have been here for a while. Crucial made major playoffs just 2 majors ago. Like, we're talking about teams with some tenure. Do they deserve to lose that chance entirely over a team who don't even play like in the mixed circuit very much? And every time they do, they get absolutely stomped. I don't think that's fair. That sort of thing I think is also poor. If they had a good ranking, perfectly fine. Maybe one day it will be a good ranking. But that is gonna happen. And when that happens, Valve are gonna go, all right, fuck, maybe our ranking isn't very good, and then they're gonna change it for the next major cycle to weight events differently or something. And it's a shame that it's gonna take a fucking mockery of the ranking to get it changed. So
Obviously, it always needs to be
yeah,
that way. Because despite
those are my two.
despite
Yeah,
people like us being aware that this was stupid since they
yeah,
announced it, it doesn't
yeah,
matter. It needs to
yeah,
first fail before anything ever gets addressed. Secondly,
yeah.
there is something I do need to say though. I am very fucking happy that that teams can't just put together rosters of essentially disparate players and just play open qualies and have a chance at the major. Because honestly, fuck you. Like, if you want to go play the biggest event of the fucking year, contribute to the ecosystem the rest of the fucking year. Get fucked. I don't care that now you can't. Oh, I can't gimmick my way to the major with 5 random cunts. I don't care. I really don't care. Get stuffed.
I don't.
Sign a core, build a team properly, or pay attention and contribute to the scene. Get stuffed otherwise. It doesn't matter to me that you couldn't sign 5 random cunts and qualify for the major, Cloud9 or whoever the hell else is going to potentially whine about it. I
That's
don't care.
fair. I just think before that was what you could do. Team management knew that we could do this. That was a tool in their toolbox. And it's fair to take that tool away from them to make major qualification. I don't think it's fair to do it just ahead of the player break and then with like less than a month to actually improve that standing. And like you're asking them, build a or like you're basically saying, build a consistent team. You have to build a consistent team to make the major. All right, fair enough. How much time do I have? 3 weeks. Are they going to build a consistently good team in 3 weeks? Is that what I'm going to do? I just don't think that's fair. I think if they telegraphed this earlier, that's a lot more fair to like team management because after all, like they're only playing by the rules they're given, and before they were given the rules, we could just fluke our way into the major.
Yeah.
Like it's.
No, I
I
mean,
just
you're
don't think
not
that's
wrong.
particularly fair.
I'm very happy to fuck people over in that way. I'm very happy for it to happen. I don't
Those
mind.
two are my those two are my big qualms because I think the timing could have been so much better. And what really pains me is that there is absolutely no reason why they couldn't have done it earlier. There's absolutely no reason. And the second thing is that Valve ranking is just bad, and I think most of us can agree on that. Like,
Yeah, we don't
if
need to
we only
rehash this
if
another
we,
dozen times, though. We are over an hour in.
I have some more qualms. I'm just gonna briefly mention. I have to mention. Yes, most Swedish teams are fucked towards making the major at this point. That sucks. Um, I'm also going to point out that I think for the grassroots scene, the open qualifiers were a great opportunity. Like, if you think that, oh, Kappa Bar don't have a chance at making the major now, boo hoo. Yeah, they never had a chance of making the major. They knew they didn't have a chance of making the major. You listen to Avarista, the coach of Kappa Bar. They're a grassroots team with young players with very little investment. He straight up says in the interviews ahead of the last major qualifiers, we know we have no chance, but the open qualifiers is such a hugely important point of visibility for us. It is like it's a huge event for them to get that visibility. Every single game you win there is super important to them, and for grassroots teams like them. And I remember how like, and then it's people internationally, people who only care about tier one CS. They then come and say, "Oh, nobody's going to watch the round of 128 in a major open qualifier." Yes, I can tell you, over 1,000 people in Sweden watched one stream of like the second game in an open qualifier when one of these grassroots teams were playing. They care, like people care. And this visibility is so important to those grassroots teams. Because if we lose open qualifiers, in the grand scheme of things, I can realize that why that's a good change. I'm just going to point out, I think that's very bad for the grassroots scene. And I'm happy that next year we're going to get even more open qualifiers for other events. Because that's, people are saying this is a closed circuit. It's not a closed circuit. Next year, especially, it's going to be even more open because we lose the partner spots. So I'm really happy about that, but it is, I have to mention, because Swedish CS is very grassroots. It sucks for them. It absolutely sucks for them. And I'm not surprised Valve don't care. I'm not surprised people don't care. Yeah, I'm a bit sad for them. I just have to mention that.
Okay, cool. Let's bounce on to the Eternal Shuffle, which thankfully this week is rather short, just because of time. There's been 2 moves that happened. The first one being Ents have cut Diha and Hades, and they've signed SDY and Pody. Now, the Diha one is long time coming, brother. Like, it's ever since this roster went full Polish, the man has had a fucking clue what to do with himself. And yeah, I understand that fully. The Hades one, a little less convinced by. But I guess ever since Katowice, he has been just slowly just like crawling down the hill, and it's just not been positive. So I guess it's cheaper to pay Pody, bring him up. He's maybe got more potential to fill out. But yeah, I love the SDY edition. The Pody edition I'm happy with. I like watching that guy play on the academy. I think he's not the craziest shot hitter, the craziest wrist bender, big flicker, but he does find impact with his AWP. So pretty cool addition. Not too much to go over for me.
I need to calm down after the whole rant. I'm sorry. uh, yeah, Deco is a long time coming. I think he said in the interview afterwards as well. It's like he wasn't really happy on this team. He wasn't really happy with the Polish team that got built. He felt like he didn't really fit in. He didn't really fit into the server. So I think I don't know if the change was mutual, but I think he was pretty much fine with the change. I think he knows he can find greener pasture somewhere else. The Hades change, it's the second time Ens cut Hades when he's arguably doing fine. And the last time they did it, they were doing it for a hard upgrade when they got Sun Pius. Now they're doing it for Pody, who I think is a good talent, but he's not exactly proven. So it's hard to comment on this. Plus, SDY is a good change. We've talked about him. I think honestly, we probably brought up SDY every single episode since he left Monty because he is just he's just such a good player that you should like a lot of teams should have picked up. I think Ends are very happy to have got him signed. Pody, we'll see. I mean, from what I heard, he was pretty close to being on the Ends main team, like over the winter. But then they sort of figured, it's gonna be he's not quite ready. We're gonna loan him out to Sprout, and then 3 days later, Sprout go bankrupt. So
Yeah.
yeah, let's see how it goes. Good player.
Yeah, I did say Hades been on the downhill. He did actually have a really good pro league, so maybe he's got an offer on the table as well. Just just hope the best for him because I'm a big fan of Hades as a lad, despite you know.
I mean, the second time they're benching him when he's arguably doing fine individually, I wonder if maybe there's something outside. Like maybe if there's something in the team speak that you and I don't really get to hear about.
We'll
so,
never
yeah.
know for sure until someone goes and leaks
Yep.
it when it's way too late. Right, and the other big change, Virtus Pro cut Dastan. He's been around a long ass time, just with Jame. I'm not sure this is. I think this basically shows us that a lot of their system was actually Dastan's involvement and was actually important to that system, the one they were running for all these years.
We talked about this 2 weeks ago, I think.
Might have done. But more importantly, the fact that Electronic probably needs a different style to thrive, and if the way they need to play around having Electronic, who has been fragging out, probably means they need a different coach to come in with a different approach, a different way of looking at the game, change things up a bit. Yeah, maybe it's not everything needs to change, but just certain details. They want to approach a different way. They're going to bring a new coach. Okay, does seem a bit odd, but it's the change they probably need to make sooner rather than later if they want to actually go forward as the VP Russian super team. We've got Electronic. Let's make this work.
Yeah, it's not a lot to comment about. We have no. It's hard enough to know about what different coaches do in teams that actually speak the language that you and I speak. It's even harder to know about in the CIS scene. I have no fucking idea. Maybe Dustin did fuck all. Maybe he was literally the core of this team. So it's let's see. I think the rumor was that Xoma from Nine Pandas is going to be the one coming in. I think he's a fine coach. I think he's done some good stuff in the past. I think, but it's I do wonder if Jame is going to be next in line here.
Highly
I don't know.
It.
I wonder, because I also wonder, like, is this something that the team wanted, or is this once again VP making moves on a managerial level? Because that's sort of what we heard in the past, that the org, for example, when Chiron got signed, nobody on the team actually wanted Norbert to leave, and they knew that Chiron was going to fit in, but then the team just went ahead and signed him anyway. So let's see.
Yeah, hopefully they don't do something stupid. Right, prospects of the week. I'm going to lead this off because I didn't expect to be saying the name Mikey on my Counter-Strike podcast. Such an English bloke name. But yet here we are. Mikey, the Slovakian player, playing for Unity. Uh, yeah, he came onto my radar because I was, as I said, I literally quoted the exact game. Unity versus Johnny Speeds at like 10 a.m. I'm just sat there
Yeah,
watching this guy, and he's just fragging out. I'm thinking, I've never heard of this bloke.
yeah,
Why has he got this nickname? And what's he actually playing like? And I checked his numbers for the week were all good, and I was like, oh damn, he's actually been by far the best player on this Unity roster, who've had themselves a decent little run in the week. I mean, it's all tier 2 play, but they beat Rebels, Johnny Speeds, and Sinners. Some losses that probably mean they're not the greatest team in the world, but he as an individual has played solid. I just,
Ooh.
yeah, I was not expecting that name. He's playing a game right now, I believe, against some
No, it's
team.
happening later, I think. But
No,
it's
okay, the game's over
oh
actually. They played Passion UA and
yeah.
lost. There you go. Never mind.
The Tipsport thing is on LAN. This is one of the recurring LAN events in Czechia.
Ooh, it was actually today then.
Yeah, Eklot has won it like 3 times. So but they might and they beat Unity. Eklot beat Unity in the last game, but Unity might make the final if they can beat Sinners.
Well, yeah. Well, this
Yeah,
might go
but
big
that's
time
a lot.
fragger. Big time fragger.
Yeah,
So, one to
I
watch
mean,
out for.
yeah,
It's 20. I was just amused by the name, and plus, delivered when I actually watched him, so why not?
yeah. Good on him. That's secured major qualifier status for him. Those very good wins against Passion UA in the European Pro League. Sorry, I'm pissed off. Yeah,
Of course so.
yeah. He's a guy I've seen on the stat sheet for sure. Never really paid much attention to him. I always thought I never Unity have been around for a good while, but I've never paid them like any mind. Uh, they have some players I recognize from elsewhere. This K1 FIDA guy, he's been on Eclot. Yeah. Uh, his stats are undeniably great. He's definitely put up good numbers on this Unity team. 20 years old. Um, yeah, he's on LAN right now. So that's like this recurring LAN for Czechia. I can imagine that's actually pretty good experience wise. Because I think this happens like 2 or 3 times a year, and it's always just the same. Like it's always Eklot, Eklot and Sinners and all of those guys playing. So that's gonna be good experience, especially if he can make the final. That's gonna be big.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I've never paid this guy any attention. So it's cool that he's doing stuff.
But yes, introduce us to your pick, who I'm sure most of us have at least noticed by
Yeah,
now.
Huaso pick, the aforementioned 9Z Academy player. I'm gonna be brief. There's not he didn't do a huge amount here in Dallas. I think he played a fairly decent game with a 1.07 rating. I mostly because of that Inferno map. Because when
Right.
you're this guy's 21, he's just come up out of the academy system from 9Z, and he's placed in his very first arena game. He's being placed against Nico, who's playing a great ass game on Inferno, which is G2's pick. So it's not like every disadvantage you can imagine. And this guy still puts up over 20 frags in that map, and that's pretty big. Like he really showed up in these playoffs. Dust 2 maybe a bit more lukewarm, but he still pulled his weight, I think. So it's I mostly mentioned it because of that. Group stage he was also fine. Absolutely. It was more the Martinez show, I think, but it's
Mm.
he was definitely there as the next best guy, and I think just he looked very good. He looked very comfortable in that arena setting against Prime esque Nico in on Inferno, and that's a very good sign for the future. If you can do that in your first arena game, then you can do quite a lot of things.
Yeah, that's a nice way to start things off, I think, for him.
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah.
no, yeah, I mean, they needed everyone to pull their weight to realistically make this run happen. Plus, Peak definitely contributes. I mean, he's more on the supportive end of this roster. He's not really one of the big guys you expect to pick up most of the weight for the roster. Like, that's going to be Max, DGT, and Martinez quite heavily. But
Mm.
no, he made it work. I think, yeah, promising signs as well for them. They have a young guy who's pretty composed on the big stage, and they can probably keep working on that. It's just a question of if they can qualify to more events to allow him to
Mm.
continue that development and thrive. Otherwise, yeah, as I was saying, if you want to build a Spanish-speaking squad, it's time to start nicking players out of South America. Or if 9Z want to keep on building, potentially go sign some Iberian players if they need to, like maybe get more IGL help. We'll see. It's an interesting thing because there's not too many options in that sort of region. But hey, maybe if they can tempt M80 with a big old deal for a certain Guatemalan player, they can start building an absolute monster. This guy playing the support roles could be done. So, yeah. Pretty interesting week. Pretty interesting episode. We're going to have to wrap it up, though, because we're an hour and 20 minutes deep, and what should have been a shorter one ended up being long as balls. But yeah, if you made it this far, you're my hero. And yeah, leave a like, comment your thoughts on all our takes. Remember that members get special privileges because they are better than you. And yeah, that's all for this one.